If I asked you to picture the most powerful room in the world, you'd probably imagine the Oval Office, maybe the Situation Room at the Pentagon, or perhaps the boardroom of the Federal Reserve, where serious men in expensive suits sit around a mahogany table and decide the price of money. You would be wrong. The most powerful room in the world isn't in Washington. It isn't in New York. It's a server room, and it might be in London, Singapore, or the Cayman Islands. In this room, a currency is being traded. It decides if you can buy a house in Texas. It decides if a factory in Brazil stays open. It decides if a government in Europe collapses. But here is the uncomfortable truth. This currency creates trillions of dollars in wealth, yet the United States government doesn't print it. The Federal Reserve doesn't track it. And nobody, not the banks, not the regulators, and definitely not the politicians, knows exactly how much of it exists. We live in a world where we obsess over the stock market and inflation data. We watch the Federal Reserve chairman speak like he's an oracle reading the future. But while everyone is watching the puppet show on stage, the real mechanics are happening in the dark. There is a shadow currency that actually runs the world. It is the invisible plumbing of the global economy. And right now, the pipes are leaking. To understand why your grocery bill is up, why housing feels mathematically impossible, or why the global economy feels like it's teetering on a razor's edge, you have to stop looking at the money in your wallet. That money is irrelevant. You need to look at the money that doesn't officially exist. Let's start with a simple lie you were told in school. You were taught that money comes from the government. The central bank prints the cash, gives it to banks, and the banks lend it to you. It's a nice, clean, vertical line, top down. This implies control. It implies that if the economy slows down, the government can just turn a dial, print a little more, and speed it up. If things get too hot, they turn the dial back. This is a comforting story. It makes us feel like someone is driving the bus. But since the 1950s, a completely different banking system has been growing like black mold behind the wallpaper of the global economy. It's called the Eurodollar system. Now, don't let the name bore you. Eurodollar sounds like some bureaucratic currency used in Brussels. It's not. A Eurodollar is simply a US dollar held in a bank outside of the United States. That's it. If you are in Tokyo and deposit a US dollar into a Japanese bank, that is a Eurodollar. If a German company takes a loan in US dollars from a French bank, that is a Eurodollar loan. Here is why that matters. Once that dollar leaves the shores of the United States, it enters a legal twilight zone. The Federal Reserve in Washington has no jurisdiction over a bank in Tokyo. They can't tell them how much to lend. They can't even tell them how much cash to keep in the vault. So if a bank in London wants to lend $1 million to a bank in Singapore, they don't need the Fed's permission. They don't even need the physical dollars. They just open a digital ledger and write, "We owe you $1 million."
And poof, money is created. This sounds like a conspiracy theory, but it is the literal foundation of global trade. We aren't talking about small change. We are talking about a market that is estimated to be 3 or 4 times larger than the actual US money supply. We are talking about tens of trillions of dollars that exist nowhere but on the spreadsheets of private banks. But to understand how this shadow monster got big enough to eat the real economy, you have to understand the irony of its birth. The most capitalist system in history was actually invented by the communists. Rewind to the 1950s. The Cold War is freezing over. The Soviet Union is selling oil and gold to the West, and they are getting paid in US dollars. But the Soviets had a problem. They were terrified if they kept their dollars in a bank in New York, the US government would freeze their accounts if relations got sour. It was a valid fear. So the Soviets went to a bank in London, specifically the Midland Bank, and asked a strange question. Can we keep our US dollars here in London, but keep them denominated in dollars? The British bankers, who love fees more than they hate communists, said, sure. That moment changed everything. For the first time, the US dollar had separated from the United States. It became a ghost. Bankers in London realized something incredible. Since these dollars were technically sitting in Britain, the US Federal Reserve's rules didn't apply. They didn't have to keep reserves. They didn't have to pay insurance premiums. They could lend these dollars out as fast as they wanted. And the world was hungry. In the 1960s and 70s, global trade exploded. Everyone wanted dollars. If you wanted to buy oil from Saudi Arabia, you needed dollars. If you wanted to buy copper from Chile, you needed dollars. But the US banking system was slow and regulated. The offshore system, the Eurodollar system, was the Wild West. It was fast, loose, and unregulated. So the shadow system won. It became the lubricant for the entire engine of human commerce. This brings us to the magic trick, the mechanism that makes this terrifying. In the normal world, if I lend you $10, I don't have that $10 anymore. You have it. In the Eurodollar world, banks operate on collateral. Let's say Bank A has a US Treasury bond, a safe asset. They show it to Bank B and say, look, I'm good for the money. Lend me $100 million. Bank B says, okay. Now Bank A has the cash, but they still have the bond. So they go to Bank C, show them the same bond, and say, look, I'm good for the money. Lend me another $100 million. This is called rehypothecation. It's a fancy word for betting the same chip on two different roulette wheels at the same time. In the shadow system, money isn't physical. It's a promise. It's a chain of IOUs stretching across the ocean. Bank A owes Bank B, who owes Bank C, who owes a pension fund in Canada. As long as everyone believes the promises, the system flows. Money is cheap. Credit is easy. You can get a mortgage. A startup can get funding. The line goes up. But what happens when someone stops believing? We saw what happened in 2008. Most people think 2008 was about greedy Americans buying houses they couldn't afford. That was the spark, sure, but the dynamite was the Eurodollar system. When the housing market dipped, banks started looking at each other's collateral and said, I don't think that bond is worth what you say it is. Suddenly, trust evaporated. Bank B told Bank A, I want my money back. Bank A didn't have it. They had to sell assets to pay the debt, but everyone was selling assets at the same time. Prices crashed. The shadow money supply, trillions of dollars of credit, vanished overnight. This is the part that finance textbooks usually skip. When a bank in the shadow system stops lending, it is effectively destroying money. It is monetary deflation on a massive scale. And here is the kicker. The Federal Reserve couldn't fix it. Ben Bernanke and the Fed printed billions of dollars in 2008. They threw cash at the wall. But the offshore hole was in the trillions. It was like trying to fill the Grand Canyon with a garden hose. The reason the recovery from 2008 felt so slow, the reason wages stagnated for a decade, is because the shadow banking system never really recovered. The pipes are still clogged. Which brings us to right now and why you should be worried. For the last 2 years, the Federal Reserve has been raising interest rates aggressively to fight inflation. They are trying to make money expensive so people stop spending. But remember the server room in the Cayman Islands? When the Fed raises rates, they are shaking the foundation of the Eurodollar system. The entire world runs on dollar-denominated debt. Developing nations, global corporations, foreign banks, they all owe trillions in US dollars. When the dollar gets stronger and rates go up, that debt becomes harder to pay. Imagine you were a business in Turkey. You earn revenue in Turkish lira, but you took a loan in Eurodollars to build your factory. Suddenly, the dollar spikes in value. Your loan just got 30% more expensive, but your income stayed the same. You were insolvent. Now multiply that by 1,000 banks and 10,000 corporations across the globe. We are seeing the cracks form. We see it when the Bank of England has to intervene to save pension funds. We see it when Credit Suisse, a titan of the Eurodollar world, collapses over the weekend. We see it in the currency crises in Egypt, Pakistan, and Argentina. These aren't isolated accidents. They are symptoms of a global liquidity drought. The shadow currency is drying up. There is a supreme irony here. The United States has weaponized the dollar. By shutting Russia out of the SWIFT system, by tightening the supply, they are reminding the world who owns the casino. But by making the dollar weaponized and scarce, they are forcing the shadow system to break. If the Eurodollar system seizes up again, it won't look like 2008. In 2008, the banks didn't trust each other. Next time, the banks might not trust the government bonds that back the whole system. And the scary part, the Federal Reserve has no map for this. They stopped publishing data on the broader money supply years ago. They are flying a plane with blindfolds, manipulating levers that aren't connected to the engines anymore.
You can't do this.
So, where does this leave us? It means that the money you think you understand, the cash in your account, the bills in your wallet, is just the tip of the iceberg. The massive block of ice underneath is a ledger system run by private banks in foreign jurisdictions, betting on collateral that is being reused 5 times over. It works beautifully, until it doesn't. We have built a global economy that requires constant expansion of credit just to stay alive. It's a shark that has to keep swimming or it dies. And right now, the water is getting very shallow. The next time you hear a politician say they are going to fix the economy, ask yourself, do they even know where the money is? Because the uncomfortable truth is that the currency running the world isn't controlled by a government, a president, or a king. It's controlled by a network of promises in the dark. And promises are easy to break.